You're watching Al Jazeera. I want to tell you straight away about some breaking news that has just come in. We are told, sources have told Al Jazeera, that Hamas has submitted its response to the U.S. outlined ceasefire proposal. That's coming as Hamas and the Palestinian Islamic Jihad group issued a joint statement expressing readiness to reach a deal. Now, according to sources, they have made some amendments. The amendments include a withdrawal from the entire Gaza Strip, including the Rafah crossing and the Philadelphia corridor. We'll try and get you more details as they come in, and then we'll share them with you. At this juncture, I want to bring in our guest, James Elder. He is a UNICEF spokesperson, and he joins us live from Deir al Balah in Gaza. James, grateful to have you with us. You're back in Gaza. How would you describe the situation?
Hell on earth, Layla. After what happened over the weekend, to be today in Al-Aqsa Hospital, which was already packed, already beyond capacity last week, and then to have 400 people with these horrendous wounds of war coming in the space of an hour. So again today, walking around with a doctor, with these incredible physicians who are doing 24-hour shifts, we're walking over children with these wounds of war on the floor, you know, with head injuries, because the capacity has just been absolutely devastated. It felt like it could have been day one of this horrendous war on children. It is, of course, day 250. And then to leave the hospital, and of course, all we see is rubble. I walked outside, and there is a lady who's in tears because her family home has been destroyed, her husband's killed, and she just wants a tent. Layla, as you and your viewers know, these stories are everywhere, but they're relentless, and that's why we hope this talk of a ceasefire for those people in power who seem, to be honest, utterly disconnected from the suffering of the civilians of Gaza. Hopefully now this is that moment, because people, from what I'm seeing this time around, look like they're just hanging on.
Just hanging on. I mean, the atrocities that have been unfolding have been truly shocking. What do you make, as you're witnessing the situation there where you are on the ground and the wrangling over this ceasefire that just continues?
Yeah, it is. I mean, I think, we have to move beyond the words. We have to look at the evidence on the ground, and the evidence on the ground, literally in terms of the rubble, or literally with wounded children in tears on the ground, is there for all to see. The intent here has been the devastation of Gaza, and the devastation of Gaza from schools and universities, the education, to the agriculture, to the learning capacity. It's been ubiquitous. And we see this across now the Gaza Strip. To see 1 million people have had to move from Rafah, exhausted, shell-shocked, to try again and find another home. Believe it or not, there is a shortage now of tents. People are under plastic sheeting. It's 45 degrees. So I think it's very clear what the reality is that people are enduring. Now, of course, they hold on to hope. People have to hold on to hope, Layla. When I meet people again, people I've become friends with, and I say, "How are you?" which sounds like such a silly question, their response is alive. People are grateful for being alive. It is insane that this beautiful society is being reduced to gratitude for being alive. So yes, the ceasefire needs to look into the eyes of doctors who ask me, how much more evidence does the Western world need? Or children who simply plead to see their parents again. This is what this ceasefire hopefully will bring.
James Elder, UNICEF spokesperson. Sir, thank you so very much. And I want to go now to Imran Khan, who is in the Jordanian capital, Amman, just to get some more on that breaking news that we've been telling you about. Imran, I understand you're joining us on the phone. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I've got you.
Imran, so as we've just broke the news that Hamas has submitted its response to the U.S. outlined ceasefire proposal, what are you hearing from your side?
Well, what Hamas sources have told Al Jazeera is they are ready and have submitted a response to the proposed ceasefire deal to the Qatari and Egyptian mediators. This is a joint statement that they have released. So it's now very clear that they are willing to negotiate. Earlier in the day, we heard from a Hamas official after the resolution news had broken in the Security Council that Hamas were willing to send negotiators. This is now a step forward to that. They've responded to the Egyptians and the Qataris. Hamas are now ready to do something that will get to a ceasefire. The ball is now in Israel's court. Remember the original ceasefire deal that Biden put forward? He always said, this is the Israeli ceasefire deal. Israel was quite surprised by that. And what Israel said was, we are willing to perhaps commit to the first phase of this, which is an original 6-week ceasefire deal, and then the release of captives. But what Antony Blinken has done for the last 4 days is talk about the idea that this is on Hamas. Hamas need to respond. Hamas need to do something. This is on Hamas. Well, this is now Hamas's response. Hamas have quite clearly said they are willing to negotiate. And this, let's see what happens in the next couple of days. Remember, on Wednesday, Antony Blinken is in Doha. There is a press conference happening at 5 p.m. local time with the Emir of Qatar. He's going to have to take in this Hamas response and talk about that at the ceasefire, at the press conference. So right now, it's very breaking news. There's only a few details that we have, but the clear message is from both Palestinian Islamic Jihad and Hamas that they are willing to talk.
They're willing to talk, Imran, but a salient detail here, according to sources, is they have made some amendments. And the amendments include a withdrawal from the entire Gaza Strip, including Rafah crossing and the Philadelphia corridor. Are these non-starters, though, for the Israelis?
Well, Hamas have actually always called for a permanent ceasefire. That was always what they were working towards. All of these are now just negotiating details. Whether they're negotiating right now in public, which is what's happening, or whether they're negotiating in private, Hamas's position has always been very clear. A permanent ceasefire. That's something Israel does not want to do. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has always been very, very clear. We need to destroy Hamas both politically and militarily. Most of his actual generals, most of the Israeli security establishment thinks that that goal may not be able to happen in the way the Prime Minister wants. So although they've been clear on the details, they haven't changed that. Hamas haven't changed their position. It's always been about a permanent ceasefire for Hamas.
It's always been about a permanent ceasefire for Hamas. I'm just wondering, in terms of from the Israeli leadership's perspective, specifically Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, if he were to accept a ceasefire, would that essentially spell out the end of his government?
That is a question that Sorry, can you still hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Imran.
Right. That is a question better put to analysts and the people who have an opinion. All I can report is the news to you. And the news, and sorry, I'm pausing slightly because it is a very awkward question to answer. Here's the thing. In Israel, the common thinking is that if there's an end to the war and there is a new election, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu loses. So he continues the war because he wants to stay in power. That is an opinion that many people in Israel hold. I think that's the only way I can answer that question.
Gotcha. No worries. So, Imran, in terms of, up to now, we've heard today from U.S. Secretary of State Blinken, Antony Blinken, but I'm wondering, have we heard from Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu endorsing this resolution that was passed in the UN Security Council?
Well, let me tell you, the response to the UN Security Council resolution was incredibly muted. The only real thing that we heard was actually a statement by the U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, who turned around and said, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has committed to a ceasefire proposal. Compare that to what happened with the last 3 ceasefire proposals, when Israel went after the United Nations and said the United Nations are anti-Israeli, the United Nations are anti-Semitic. They couldn't do that with this resolution because it was U.S.-led. And even the Israelis would not criticize the U.S. Now, backstage, there was a lot of confusion because President Joe Biden had always said that this was the Israeli proposal that they were putting forward. In Israel, there was a lot of surprise about that because they thought that they would commit to the first stage of it, which is a 6-week ceasefire, and then the release of some captives. And then another stage. But what they didn't want is the idea that the third stage would be Israeli troops withdrawing from the Gaza Strip and the rebuilding of Gaza. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has been absolutely clear about this, and I'm going to repeat this again. He wants to destroy Hamas politically and militarily. In his close circles and in the far-right government, the ceasefire deal is being seen as allowing Hamas to survive. And that's a big political problem for the Prime Minister.
Imran Khan reporting. Imran, grateful for your reporting, and thank you.